I'm Kat.
And I'm Haley.
And this is Night Classy,
A tipsy night class teaching the oddities and curiosities you never learned in school.
What are we drinking, Haley?
I have a How Chill Truly.
Yeah, that she jammed a giant metal straw into and blew out her eardrums.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to happen. I didn't know my straw was that thick. Thick with 3 C's.
Sometimes you gotta have self-awareness and know your level of thickness.
Well, we found out
We
quickly.
did. Yeah.
Abruptly.
Alarmingly.
Yes, I thought I'd try it out. Strawberry melon fizz. What are you drinking?
How is it?
It's good. I like it a lot.
Good.
Maybe I'm a Truly girl.
Maybe. Don't say that. I don't.
You don't like
I
Truly
don't fuck
girls?
with Truly girls. White Claw
Or Die.
Die, yeah. Something about Truly is maybe I'm just like a bougie bitch who like needs it to be brand name.
You're a
Like
traditionalist.
maybe I'm a traditionalist. Maybe this is the placebo effect, but I definitely feel like Trulies have a taste to them that is not good, and White Claw doesn't have that taste.
Yeah, I agree with you. To me, White Claw has more of a kick. It's more flavorful almost. These are good. I like these a lot. I don't know. It's a little poolside guide. I'm sure it's great for day drinking.
Yeah, the can is pretty.
It is.
And we're day drinking. It's not 5
are.
o'clock yet.
We
It
are.
is 4:54.
So we're day drinking, and you have a Simply Lemonade.
Yes, I have a spiked Simply Lemonade just like I had last week. It is blueberry flavored because I still have them in my fridge because we recorded 2 days ago. And I have a strawberry one on the queue, and it's really good. And I have a plastic straw, so it's not going to hurt our ears when it pushes into the can.
Yeah, honestly, I'm being a little nasty. This is the straw that I used last time. Still been in my purse 2 days that I used for my...
And you haven't washed it?
Well, I rinsed it out after we were done. I didn't wash it. There's not chunks of my old Taco Bell freeze
And
in
it's not
here.
like you were drinking a smoothie. It was like a slushie.
Yeah.
And
So
I
I
had
think it's
vodka in
fine.
it to kill the germs.
There we go. See, this is why we need alcohol.
Germ theory. Yeah. We're scientists over here. We're all good.
Hose for science, to be specific.
The other day, my HelloFresh delivery got delayed by 3 days. And so I got a box full of warm, rotting food. And I still ate most of it. So, and I'm still alive. So if I survived that, you can survive this straw.
Did you not go to HelloFresh and Karen out on them?
Well, it wasn't their fault. It was FedEx's fault because they have trouble getting into our apartment gate. And so they, even though I put in the delivery instructions, our code, and it's printed on the box, they don't fucking look at it.
No, I don't care whose fault it is.
And so if I were going to go full Karen on anyone, it would be FedEx, and I'm gonna go full Karen now because it's their fault. And I realize that mail delivery people are under a lot of stress and they have to do a lot of deliveries, so I don't fully blame them, which is why I didn't complain. But it was frustrating, and I ate rotten food. No, I didn't. It wasn't rotten. It was probably fine.
Yeah,
it was
you don't
just
have
a
any-
little wilty.
There's no meat in there.
No.
But also, HelloFresh will give you your next box free for stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll message them when they deliver rotten produce on time, and they give you discounts or whatever. But I felt like it was FedEx's fault, and also my fault a little bit somehow. I don't know. I'm just gonna take some of the blame.
That anxiety in you.
Yeah. So,
Oh, girl,
But anyway, it did not make me
Not
sick.
the
I'm
same.
fine.
I did that for every plate. They delivered us some rotten food, and
Yeah.
the person I was chatting with, she was like, "Well, is there anything that you can salvage?" I said, "No, it was
over
all
a
rotten.
week.
It's
Over
over
a
a
week?
week.
Oh,
Yes.
damn. No, this was not that.
Yeah, not exactly the same, but
Yeah.
I was not having it. I'm like, okay, maybe I can salvage these 2 carrots.
Yeah, no. And if you got meat in there, then the meat juices
Ugh.
rotten
Yeah.
leak out. No,
Nasty.
absolutely fucking not. No, this really wasn't that bad. And the produce that was too wilty to eat, we just
Words.
replaced ourselves. Yeah.
Oh, well, enough of this domestic bliss.
You know what? This podcast should just be
That is our
let's
life.
bitch about our boring lives because
Oh
my god, so
many
boring.
people would listen. Alec is already bored as
He's
usual.
pissed. It's fine. Well, we don't have anything else to fucking talk about. It's only been 2 days. How do
know.
other podcasts do it? They record every day and just batch their episodes. How do they banter? I don't understand.
I don't neither. We're both pretty quiet to begin with anyway.
Yeah.
Neither of us feel the need to keep a conversation like going for no reason, you know?
Yeah,
like
we're best friends because we can sit in silence.
Yes, and I love that about us. On the car ride here, I picked you up probably like 50% of the time. It's all vibes.
Vibing. Well, according to Alec, we have to save our banter for the podcast. So I've tried not to talk to you ever unless we're in front of a microphone.
I unfriended you on Facebook. I unfollowed you on Instagram.
I mean, I don't want to talk to you.
I know nothing.
If it's not worth it.
Yeah, you only talk to me
If
for
it's
the
not
podcast. And
monetized.
if you need monetized.
LOL.
Well, that's all I've got.
That's all I've got too. I don't know. I don't even know when this episode is going to come out. So I don't know what announcements there are. I'm sure something will be being released on Patreon eventually soon. But
yeah, we always have stuff coming on Patreon, guys. We are like busting our butts. Right now we are in summer since we work from August to May. We are in summer break right now. But we're always putting stuff on Patreon. I love making that extra content because it's out of the norm. It's like we do these episodes every single week and then we get to change something up. So on Patreon, we have our List Bitch show where it's just Night Classy, but we just do List. The last one, Kat did Florida Man. And
no, that was a regular episode.
That was a regular one, but that was my brain.
Also a list.
Doesn't work. Also a list. That was a sneak peek. So you can listen to that or you can join us on Patreon. And there's also our trivia show where we visit episodes from over 2 years ago and we see how much we remembered. Not much, but it is very fun. Kat gets so competitive. I did not know that was even in her. And what else do we have going on Patreon? We have all of our backlogs of our old episodes. We've had a lot of guests come on and teach us lessons.
Yeah, lots of fun stuff. So check that out. I think I'll still be in Washington when this comes out. So I don't know that there's anything new to check out yet, but you can see it in the future. And I'll be having fun going squatching in Mount Rainier.
Squatching. What am I going to do? This is all I do.
This
podcast is all I do.
You should come to Washington with us.
Okay, yeah, I have $800 extra dollars.
You know what? Do it.
Screw it.
You only live once, YOLO. All right. Well, I blew a .060.
God, I blew a .033.
So I get to go first. And here we go. Let me get in storytelling mode. Ooh. It is the year 1728, and a boat arrived to the French colony of New Orleans. Frontiersmen, fishers, trappers, and traders gathered around the dock to watch the strange cargo be unloaded. What came off the boat wasn't rum or barley or sugar. It was young women and girls.
Oh, no.
Being that the colony was mostly men, this should have been a good thing. Only the girls didn't look right.
What? Literally what?
They were thin, sickly, and pale. So pale that their skin burned and blistered after just moments in the sun.
That's me, though, actually.
Yeah, this is a kind of a rude description because I fit it pretty closely.
I will never forget the day in high school. We went out for a fire drill, not even 5 minutes. Came back sunburnt.
Yeah, it freaking happens. I, for the longest time, was so stubborn. I refused to wear sunscreen because I wanted to be tan so bad. Physically, that's impossible for me.
Refused to wear sunscreen. You didn't wear coats.
I didn't wear coats.
I thought you've said that you would not wear like big puffy coats because you were like one of those kids who's like too cool.
Oh, yeah, that's probably true. I probably said that. And I do remember being, my high school is a freaking open campus. It was in Washington State, Northwest Washington State, where it's cold like 60 or 70% of the year. And we didn't have inside hallways. Everything was outside. And so like, if you wanted to be warm, you'd have to wear like a snowsuit to school every day, which obviously I wasn't going to do. And so I just wear my normal outfit and then like ran from class to class.
That's insane. I remember wearing my winter coat indoors because I don't know why, but there was practically no heat in our Southern Ohio school.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, I refuse to wear sunscreen. This is what I was going to say. And then one year I went to Lake Tahoe in Nevada, and it's like high elevation and hot as fuck. And I refused to wear sunscreen. And then my entire body turned into like a giant blister. And I was like, you could like run your finger over like my abdomen and just like pop blisters. And then the blister juice is just running over. It was horrible. I was literally bedridden for days.
Oh, yeah.
And watched Orange is the New Black.
That'll happen. I love that show. I need to rewatch that show. Yeah, I have experienced the same thing. Falling asleep in Miami.
Oof,
wrecked.
That'll do it.
Wrecked. I remember my dad heard me crying in the shower and he was like, "Are you okay, Haley?" I'm like, no, I'm not okay.
I'm literally burnt. My hand is burnt.
To the hospital
right now. Do you see the little ripples at the top of my fingers? That's because I grabbed my hot curling iron today with my bare hand.
Why?
Because I thought it was off. And I was like, let me test if this is off. And then I just grabbed it
with my whole hand.
And it wasn't, because I really thought it was off. And sometimes I'll like do that to punish myself because I have such bad anxiety of leaving my hair curler on. So even when I know it's off, I'll like have to like check if it's on. And so I'm like, that's stupid. I need to break myself of that habit. So when I do it, I just full on grab it because I'm like, this isn't hot, but this time it really was hot.
We can't be friends anymore.
I'm sorry. This is therapy hour.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can go to therapy, or you can be like, I need to punish myself. Time to burn my hand. This is what my parents would want.
So that was oversharing.
Wait, pause. Is this recording? Because it doesn't look like it's recording.
It is. It fucked up, so it's recording here.
Okay, I see. Okay.
I gave up.
Anyway, back to this story.
Full on, he's shoving a sandwich into his mouth over there.
Yeah, what is that sandwich? It's like an inch of peanut butter on sourdough bread. Is there even any jelly on that?
A little bit.
Okay,
just a little bit. The key is to make a pocket of jelly. That's what I do.
You gotta put
so you put peanut butter on both sides, both pieces of the sandwich, and then you put a little bit of jelly
and insulate
hold it in. Yeah,
so it doesn't soak into the bread. Yes,
I don't have time for that.
Okay, so
we know
the girls back to these pale fucking ugly ass girls. So
oh my god,
each one carried a casket shaped chest. What was in those chests? Everyone was wondering. After deboarding the ships, the girls were ushered into the Ursuline Convent, a nunnery where they were brought to the attic third floor. Once inside, the girls were kept there, and the shutters were tightly closed, some say even nailed shut. After the girls' arrival, strange things started happening in the colony. Crops failed, people grew ill, and the mortality rate grew noticeably worse. Then, one day, the girls were gone. When the nuns went up to the third floor to find them, it was empty, except for their coffin-shaped boxes. All were open, and none of the contents were in sight. Panicked and suspecting some kind of evil, the nuns sealed off the third floor by nailing the doors and shutters closed with nails blessed by a priest.
There we go, baby. Ignore those problems.
Yes.
They do not exist.
Compartmentalize, shut that shit out, grab your hair curler by your hand. Word got out to the colonists and suspicions rose. Had the girls brought the first vampires to New Orleans? Or were they vampires themselves?
Ooh.
This is the legend of the Casket Girls, supposedly the origin of vampires in New Orleans. And while this story is a myth, it is based in some real historical events.
Isn't New Orleans where that clan of like real vampires was?
Yeah. Because the story has a long history of vampires, starting with this, which is the like origin, like rumor of there being vampires.
Okay.
There.
There's a vampire in my story too.
Ooh, love a Twilight moment.
I think it's actually the same. No, I'm just kidding.
My heart dropped. I got so excited. I would love for that to happen.
Oh, one day.
In the 17th century, France had colonies in Canada. These colonies were fur trapping and almost entirely men. Meanwhile, the English colonies, entire families were immigrating there, and their population was growing. And this worried the French because they're like, they're getting bigger. Like, we have all men, can't procreate, we can't compete. So the intendant of New France, Jean Talon, wrote to King Louis XIV asking that women be sent to the colony.
Send women and force birth immediately.
Right. Yeah. Some things never change. So he agreed, and this started the King's Daughters program. Through this, between 1663 and 1673, 800 young French women were sent to New France to be brides for the colonists.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, I mean... yeah, probably not.
Well, you get to call yourself the king's daughter.
That's true. That's true. And like the sources, some of the sources I read made it very clear that like this did not mean they were nobility. Like this basically meant they were wards of the state. But I mean, for a lot of them, this was a pretty good option, and I'll get into it. Not that like they should have had to have this option, because my next bullet point is most of them were between 12 and 25 years old. So this definitely was not a good thing.
But out of all the things for the time period.
Yeah, exactly. And they weren't, in this case, they were not forced. I'm sure many of them were coerced, whether that be by their circumstances, or their families. But it was voluntary, which is of course being used loosely since
allegedly
many of them are underage. And so to be accepted, you had to apply. Like this was something that a lot of people wanted, either for themselves or for their daughters. You had to get a parish priest to write you a letter of recommendation saying you were of good moral character and would make a good wife. The girls were recruited mostly from the lower or working class or the middle class. They were not nobility. People weren't sending like their highborn daughters here, but they, like a lot of them were middle class. Not necessarily in destitute situations. They were commoners, but they were also not criminals or sex workers, which is a common misconception. A lot of times when people tell this history, they make the assumption that these women were destitute and were like taken because they had no other option. That was not necessarily the case. In fact, there was only one woman from the entire 800 that was ever like tried for being a sex worker once they came to the colony. So they were not that that's a bad thing, but that's how they're painted a lot of times, which is not accurate. In exchange for agreeing to marry colonists, the crown paid for each girl's passage, furnished her trousseau, and this was a French tradition. It was a box full of home furnishings, so like linens,
a dowry.
Kind of like a dowry, but more for like, you know, setting up your home. Linens, like what am I trying to say?
Bed,
dishes,
bath,
bed, bath, and beyond in a box. Clothing, you know, whatever you need to start your married life.
I need one of those
right
now.
Me too. It's kind of like a what am I trying to say?
It's like one of those
list
kits.
you write for people to buy you for your wedding. Why am I blanking on this word?
Oh, a registry.
A registry. Yeah, it's kind of like their registry. So the king supplied their registry and paid their dowry.
Tell me why I have a registry and I'm not even engaged yet.
That's
because
crazy.
It's so fun. It's so fun. I have an Amazon registry.
You're insane.
I know. But there's so many good things that I don't want to lose track of. Like very beautiful glasses and things like that. But I'm like, I'm going to save this.
Okay. Good for you.
I guess
I'm glad you have that figured out.
I could put it in a list, but then I'd have to transfer the list to the registry when it actually happens. I'm a planner.
You know, that is a good thing, because if the Kardashians have taught me nothing, very early episodes where Kim is making her registry to Chris Humphries, it's stressful and hard. And so it's good that you have that all squared away, ready to go.
Plan now. I don't know when or if it will happen, but
but it's ready.
It's ready. Whoever's ready to marry me, know I have the registry. Okay, I'm bringing nothing else to the table. A lot of cat hair. An exorbitant amount of furniture that I probably need to get rid of, but
a teacher's salary, a podcast, you know, all the good things. So They were provided for in the most basic sense. And the program worked. By 1672, the population of New France in Canada had risen from 3,200 to 6,700. So pretty much double, actually more than doubled.
Math.
People started having babies. It was a good thing for the colony. It was on this precedent that the governor of Louisiana, Jean-Baptiste Le Moyne de Bienville, asked for brides to be sent to the colonies in New Orleans. This was done after priests began voicing their fears. They're like, if there are no women here, nobody's going to go to church. All these men just run around, do whatever they want. Also, the priests wanted people to evangelize to the Native Americans. And the men aren't going to fucking do that. So they needed women to essentially keep Catholicism going strong.
Keep her alive.
They're like, we need women for this.
Also, I love how places are called New France or New Orleans.
Yeah.
I wish they named them like movies, though. Like France 2.
France 2. The new arrival. Yeah. Something dramatic.
Beyond France.
And the sequel is always worse than the original.
Yes, always. That includes countries.
Yes. So it wasn't only the priests. French military generals were also asking for women to be sent over because what was happening is their men were deserting the military to go marry indigenous women. And not only that, but a lot of times they were fighting the indigenous tribes. And so this was like making a conflict of interest when the only women were native and then you're supposed to fight against them. So it was just creating a bunch of problems.
Yeah, that sounds highly problematic.
Yeah. So things weren't good. They needed women. So they're like, okay, send us some women.
Yeah, they're like, I have no idea why everyone here hates us.
Yeah.
These women are so stuck up.
They don't like us stealing all their land and killing all their people. It's so weird. So we need some women who don't care. So in, what am I saying? 250 girls and women were then sent to New Orleans. Only these were different than the original king's daughters. The original king's daughters were taken care of by the crown. They were selected carefully. These people were not.
They were the king's stepdaughters.
Yes, exactly. 209 of them were convicted felons, and that's out of 258. So a big proportion. And of course, you could be convicted of a felony for pretty much anything back then, especially if you're a woman. But
I love how these women were so coveted, but they were also like, fuck these women. It's so... They cherry picked when they wanted to respect the women and take care of them.
Yeah, and also the settlers. I guess French Canada was kind of the child, and then New Orleans was the stepchild, and they're like, all right, we're just going to empty the jails and brothels and send all those women to you, which is what they did. And these women weren't even from France. They were just plucked from French settlements. They wrote to their mayors and their bishops and jail people and whatever, and they were like, send us some women. So they're like, bet, now we can just empty out the jails and brothels, get rid of all these women we don't want, and send them to you.
Rude.
Yeah, so that's what happened. The men of the colony were not pleased. They didn't want to marry these women. They believed them to be unsuitable as brides.
Or how about you're unsuitable as husbands, asshole?
And they fucking were, because New Orleans had long been essentially a penal colony. That's where other colonies sent their degenerates and lawbreakers. So plenty of these men should have gotten on just fine with the women. And these women did assimilate very well into New Orleans society, but as sex workers, and they fit right in, but
they were the women for the job, but not in a good way.
Exactly. Because of all this, the practice was put on hold until 1728, when the crown sent over a new, more quote-unquote acceptable batch of young women, this time from France. These women had been recruited from church charitable organizations, mostly nunneries and orphanages, although we can assume that a lot of them were also from poorhouses.
Okay.
These were most likely coerced. If they're taking them from orphanages and poorhouses, they're just like, this looks slightly better than sending over the ones that are in jail. But also they were young and yeah, not a great situation. They were also quote unquote guaranteed virgins. I don't have details on what that means. I don't know if that just means they're from orphanages and they're young, so we can assume they're virgins, or if there was any sort of like checking on that. I don't think there was, but
there definitely could have been. It's not unheard of.
We can't rule that out. These are the girls that were sent over from the scenario where our story started. This was
the ghostly girls.
The ghostly girls. With each of them, each girl brought a small chest of her belongings, which was called a cassette in French. It was a small chest. It had to be small enough that each girl could carry her own luggage. And cassette roughly translated to an overnight bag. It was like a small
little duffel bag.
A little duffel bag. And over time, the word cassette morphed into casket, which eventually was blended with the English word casket. And it was not until the mid-19th century that the word casket came to mean the same thing as coffin.
Okay.
We didn't really use it that way commonly, but once it did start to mean coffin and we started talking about burying people in caskets, people made this connection and it just added to the rumors. Like all these girls showed up carrying caskets, so they must be vampires.
Tell me why I want a casket bag so bad now.
They're cute as fuck. They exist.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
And I need one. Let me add it to my registry.
Go for it.
His and hers.
Further contributing to the rumor, many photos of the quote-unquote original caskets are taken to make the casket look bigger than it really was. So all these rumors have started, and now when you look up this online, a lot of times they look really big when in reality they were small.
So small.
But the pictures make it look like they were big enough to fit a human body.
Naturally, you're going to lean into a story like this. I think you kind of have to.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
I'm cracking my new drink open. I'm sorry.
The women were sickly and pale, but not because they were vampires. It was because they had just endured an almost 6-month-long journey in the hull of a ship.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. Of course, they didn't fucking look good. They had very little sunlight or nutrition. Some sources say they were even chained together, which personally I doubt, but who knows?
I would have died. I would have literally died.
A lot of them did die. Their yellow fever was running rampant. So was malaria and just malnutrition in general. So
yeah, I would have been throwing up the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's based on experience of boats.
Yeah, I can't do boats for that reason. They probably did redden and blister in the sun, not only because they just spent months on a ship, but also because they were from France and they had just shown up in New Orleans, where the sun is much closer to the equator, much hotter. The year before the young women arrived, in 1727, Ursuline nuns from France had arrived to the colony. Their mission was to educate the young women there and evangelize the Native Americans. The nuns took charge of the Casket Girls, cared for them, and educated them in their school until they were married off. Because a lot of the girls got there when they were young, and the nuns did have an orphanage and a school there, so they kind of took care of them until it was time to find them a husband.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And they're all speaking French?
Yes.
Still? Okay.
Life in New Orleans for the girls was, for the most part, not pleasant. As you can imagine, New Orleans was a fairly underdeveloped colony at the time and was described as, quote, a place of 100 wretched hovels. It was not good.
Don't even know what that means. What's a hovel?
A hovel, it's like a slum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like a shack in a slum.
I'm like, that means nothing to me.
Because the Ursuline convent and all their school buildings and orphanage, those were the first buildings in New Orleans. Other than that, it was just a shanty town. Dang. It was not nice. It was not like how we picture New Orleans today. It was also, of course, fucking New Orleans. It was hot, mosquito infested, prone to flooding, and the girls weren't used to that climate. And the ones who were married off didn't see much of their husbands, as their husbands were trappers and traders. They were gone most of the year, and they were kind of just left in this strange land to fend for themselves. Many of the women, of course, were forced into unwanted marriages. Many of them were also mistreated by their husbands. And because of the women's strange, pale looks and the rumor that they were actually sex workers, a lot of them were left unmarried.
Imagine one of the guys like going on a first date with one of these women. He's like, so are you a vampire?
You can tell me. You can tell me.
I won't tell anyone. I swear to God.
But yeah, they were shunned and disrespected by the male population. And this is where things start to get really wishy-washy and start morphing into legend. A lot of the sources on this were not reliable, and it's really hard to tell where actual history stops and the myths begin because there wasn't good documentation on these women because like nobody cared, you know?
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Oh, I know.
But apparently, according to rumors, the king heard about how these women were being mistreated. And he was like, these are my daughters. Fuck that.
Stepdaughters.
These are my stepdaughters. Fuck you. He wasn't pleased. So he ordered the girls to come back to France. Supposedly, the girls got on ships and returned to their home country. Then the nurses took their caskets, which for some reason they left behind, and for some reason they still had their belongings in them, and took their belongings up to the 3rd floor. They left, they came back, and when they came back, they found all the caskets open and empty. They searched the convent, couldn't find anything that was in there. They didn't know what was in there because they brought them up. There was something in there. They came back, they're open and empty. You know, and
something's not adding up.
Something is afoot. They thought evil spirit or vampires. Vampires had come out of the coffin.
It's one of
obviously.
The two. It has to be. What else would it be?
I mean, obviously.
Literally nothing else.
It can't be that the girls took their belongings with them back to France.
They can't carry that much.
No.
They can't balance multiple items within their own arms.
I mean, not without the casket.
Not without the casket.
So, being afraid, the nuns bolted the doors shut and had the nails blessed by a pope. What pope, you might ask? It doesn't say. When did this happen, you might ask? It doesn't say.
Right, like did they mail the nails? Is there a pope in North America?
Supposedly, the assumption, I think, is that they are nails from Rome that were blessed by a pope there.
And then sent
Not
out.
sure how they got them. The whole story is really iffy, especially because, well, the nuns did arrive in the city and open a school and orphanage in 1727. The convent where the girls were supposedly kept on the 3rd floor wasn't built until 1734, which is 6 years after they showed up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing these nuns at night trying to bless the nails, and one of them like puts on a pope mask and like acts like she's the pope. They're like, okay, sisters, we're never talking about this again.
Yeah, she like the spirit of the Pope like inhabits her body. She's speaking in his voice.
She goes like to one of the other nuns. Just kidding.
This means it's unlikely the girls were ever housed on the 3rd floor, or that any of the dramatic stuff like the blessing of the nails or finding the caskets open ever happened. All we know for sure is that shipments of women were sent to various French colonies in the 1700s. That's pretty much it.
Wow. I love how almost all of the story is completely embellished.
Yeah. And it sucks because I wanted to like get to the bottom of it, and pretty much everything it like
there
told
is no
these
bottom.
False stories. And then even Wikipedia, it told all this stuff that happened. And then at the end of the article, it's like, but this is unlikely to have ever happened. The end. So, you know, but it's all
there
rumor.
might be a bit of truth here and
Yeah,
there.
exactly. I mean, like most things in history, there's nuggets of truth and a bunch of exaggeration. Most notably, the colonies that women were sent to were Mobile, Alabama, Biloxi, Mississippi, and New Orleans, Louisiana. And The Mobile, Alabama group of women is really interesting. And I'm just going to go off topic and talk about them a little bit because I needed more fodder for my notes, but also
let's hear it. I'm into it.
In 1702, 23 women aboard a ship called the Pelican arrived in French Alabama. They became known as the Pelican Girls, named after their ship. And upon their arrival, they were shocked by how primitive the colony was. They were like, this shit is not what we signed up for. We were told that this would be like a fruitful land with a bunch of hot young guys. That's not what was there.
No.
No, these poor babies. Instead, they were faced with a collection of crude shacks in the wilderness and a horde of rough frontiersmen. So, sucks.
That does suck. Did they stay?
Yeah, they stayed. The women did get married, but their husbands were gone most of the year because they were trappers and traders. A lot of them apparently also had Native American wives who they'd go off and spend a bunch of time with. And then like they were basically never gone. Their new wives were like, we need help planting gardens. Like, you need to give us some resources so we can grow food for ourselves since you're fucking gone all the time. And the men refused. So they were forced to eat acorns in order to not die of starvation. Like, things were really bleak.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't.
I know.
And I won't.
So, and they did not either. They were like, something has to fucking change. We have to get these guys to, one, build us better homes so we're not living in a fucking dilapidated shack. And two, like, give us a food source. So they staged the Petticoat Rebellion. I don't know why I said petticoat weird. The Petticoat Rebellion. They denied their husbands, quote unquote, bed and board until they agreed to build them better homes.
More like bed and bone.
Exactly. I think this is code for they withheld sex. I'm pretty sure. But in any case, it worked. They did build them better homes.
Yeah, it worked. Obviously, it worked.
Yeah. Strategy. However,
so simple.
It did really piss the men off who were like, these are just spoiled city girls who are causing problems and blah, 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 blah. Fuck them. But bottom line is,
and thus,
it worked.
The first incel was born.
Exactly. They were incels long before.
That's true.
In any case, even though the story of the Casket Girls in New Orleans is largely fabricated, the legend is pervasive and has put the Ursuline Convent at 1112 Chartres Street on the map as one of New Orleans' haunted places. It's mentioned in a lot of ghost tours. If you look up haunted places in New Orleans, this usually comes up. The rumor is that the girls still exist, locked on the 3rd floor to this day, living their vampire lives.
Yes, but I have a question. Are they must be Team Edward then, right?
I mean, you gotta be.
You gotta be.
Except
unless he's
these ones eat people, so I don't know.
Well, still vampire to
Team
vampire.
Lamont. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Lamont. That's true. And you know, Edward was. Oh no, he wasn't alive then. Maybe Carlisle was.
Yeah,
Carlisle and Jasper.
Jasper was Civil War.
Oh,
he was past
you're
this.
right. You're right.
I don't know if any of them were alive this early. Maybe Carlisle.
If you're listening to this right now and you don't know what we're talking about,
then fuck you.
Immediately stop listening. This is inappropriate. You're too young.
Yeah, that's more like it. What she said. The building was and is surrounded by a wall, and local ghost tours tell a story when they go by it. The story is that in 1978, a pair of paranormal investigators snuck over the wall one night to watch the building and see if they could see any of the vampires in the convent. The men aimed their cameras at the 3rd floor and then fell asleep.
Wow. Their one job.
Right.
Just
I don't know.
Stay awake.
I literally don't know how that's possible, but this is what we're told. Their cameras captured the shutters on the 3rd floor mysteriously opening and shutting, and then they malfunctioned and the footage goes dark.
Ooh,
then
spooky.
In the morning, the men's bodies were found dead, ripped apart, and drained of blood.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, this did not happen. I cannot find any reliable source other than like fucking
It's a cover-up.
Ghost tour website saying that this happened. So we can safely assume this isn't true, but apparently it is haunted. Aside from the Casket Girls, the Ursuline Convent has a rich history. In 1788, a Great Fire destroyed 75% of the French Quarter, but the Ursuline Convent was spared, apparently because the nuns' prayers caused the flames to leap over the building instead of lighting it.
What?
Crazy. Then in 1815, the Battle of New Orleans occurred 6 miles away, and the nuns could see the cannon smoke. They could hear the gunfire, so they prayed all night for a victory. And apparently their prayers worked because General Andrew fucking Jackson, motherfucker, defeated the British.
Deleted their asses. Control Alt Delete, bitch.
Yeah, bye. Apparently, he credited the nuns for his win and visited the convent to thank them after battle. So apparently the nuns at this place were very powerful. Later in modern times, it's rumored that construction workers found a large number of bones inside the walls of the convent. They hoped they belonged to animals, but lab testing revealed they were human children and infants.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I mean, this could track because the convent did have an orphanage, and New Orleans was notoriously a sickly city. It's possible that children died from diseases like yellow fever and malaria, and so their bones were left on the property, but
Sure.
no reliable sources report on this, so highly doubtful that ever happened either. But of course, with strange and dark history comes ghosts. People report hearing children's laughter coming from the gardens at night and seeing small childlike apparitions in the yard.
At least they're happy and giggling.
Yeah, they're having fun. They're living their ghost lives. Apparitions of nuns and casket girls have also been seen inside the convent. And so there you have it. That's the story of the New Orleans Casket Girls who smuggled vampires into the Americas.
Oh my God. Thank goodness for the Casket Girls.
I know. Now we have
They walked,
Edward Cullen.
Yeah, so Twilight could run. Man.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, New Orleans has been through a lot.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so, it has such an energy about it, and it's no wonder.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And it's, I don't know, it's just cool. You can't help but wonder, like, maybe one of them was a vampire. I believe. My sources are My Granny Was a Vampire Smuggling Casket Girl, a possibly true story by Michael. I definitely, I don't know what I typed for his last name. I wrote Democker. I don't know if that's what his last name really is. On verylocal.com. And random fun fact, in this article, I think he talks about how it's like a point of pride in the Louisiana area to be a descendant of one of these women. One of the Casket Girls. It's like a cool thing that
how do
people
you even
brag
prove that?
about. I don't think you really can, but it's like fun. I don't know. Just say you were.
In that case, I am a descendant of one of the Casket Girls. If saying it makes it true, hell yeah, bitches.
It's me. The Casket Girl Wikipedia page, the King's Daughters Wikipedia page, History of the Casket Girls of New Orleans by Edward Brandley on GoNOLA.com, GhostCityTours.com, The Casket Girls and Vampires of New Orleans by Randy Samuelson Brown on FolkloreThursday.com, Battle of New Orleans, Old Ursuline Convent by Mary Ann Wedgman on NewOrleansHistorical.org, Royal Tours NewOrleans.com, and A Shortage of Women by Terry L. Jones on CountryRoadsMagazine.com.
Woo, thank you for that. So many little
welcome.
sections of that story. I liked it a
know.
lot.
I really had to expand.
Fluff it up.
Yeah.
I love a good fluffy story.
Me too. It's the best. And thank you guys for listening. We will hear from our sponsors and we'll BRB.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Yesterday, to be honest with you all, I was feeling down. There's just been a lot going on, especially with everything in our government and this country. And I just felt really thankful because I knew that I had tools from therapy that I could use to get myself out of that mind space. And I did. I gave myself the time to grieve as I needed to and feel all the things I needed to feel. But I also knew that focusing on the negative wasn't going to help me feel any better. And the truth of it is that without a healthy mind, being actually happy and at peace in your day-to-day life it's hard, but the good news is therapy does work. I'm so lucky to have been able to have a therapist, and I think you all might like it too. What is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now. Maybe you'd like some tools to help. You know, it's always good to have an extra tool to put in your belt. Maybe you're just feeling insecure at work or even in your relationships. Stress is getting to you. Whatever you need, it is time to stop being ashamed of these normal human struggles that everyone goes through, because you deserve to be happy. We all have our issues in life, but you don't have to worry about dealing with them on your own. And you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy. They offer video, phone, even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. And it is more affordable than in-person therapy. You can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about, because it's always a good time for therapy, okay? Special offer to Night Classy listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/classy. That's betterhelp.com/classy. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast, and thank you for supporting Night Classy by supporting the brands who support us. Back to the show. Welcome back, party people.
Hello.
Remember the pandemic?
I wish I didn't.
I know, me too. Today we're going to talk about a pandemic that occurred in 2005. It was the corrupted blood pandemic.
What?
Yes. And it happened in World of Warcraft.
No. Did you ever play World of Warcraft?
No, but after doing this lesson, I want to so bad.
It's fun.
Tommy told me that it's like a subscription. You pay $10 to $15 per month. I'm like, take my money.
Yeah.
Take my money.
It is fun. I've never been really into it, but I've played on other people's accounts, just messing around, and it is really fun.
As someone who loves Sims as much as I do, I can easily see myself falling into a World of Warcraft hole.
Yeah, it's basically fantasy Sims.
Yeah. I'm into it. I'm hoping to actually get into it. I have a quick background on World of Warcraft for those who may not be familiar, and then we're going to get into the thick of it. Okay. World of Warcraft was released in 2004 in North America and Australia and later other countries, and it is a massive multiplayer online role-playing game. You create your character, you choose your fantasy race, class, and an allegiance to one of the endgame's in-universe factions. Players begin a quest where they fight monsters individually or with other players. I know that community is a big part of it, and you pick your guild and you form these relationships online. There are even these dungeon crawls in which players must organize a group of up to 40 people to raid the dungeon. Players can level up when they gain experience, which allows them to have better armor, use more sophisticated weapons, and participate in more complex dungeon crawls. And like I said, I want to start playing World of Warcraft right now. I don't know if my computer can handle it. I don't know anything else about it except for that I want to play it.
Yeah, you should.
When it was first released, everyone felt the same way. 24 hours after it hit the market, they had 240,000 subscribers.
Dang. What year did it come out?
2004.
Okay.
And after 4 months, they reached 1.5 million active players. When the corrupted blood pandemic happened, they had 4 million subscribers. So, what is this all about? It starts with Hakar the Soul Flayer. He was a blood god, a sort of uber vampire, and he could only be defeated by the strongest players. And if you didn't have a well thought out plan and spells and items, you would fail in any battle against Hakar. When Hakar would feel a loss coming on his part, he would use a strong lifesteal spell called Corrupted Blood. When he casted Corrupted Blood, it was supposed to last 10 seconds or until the players defeated Hakar, whichever came first. but it turned into a whole thing. One of Hakar's ways to heal himself was to stun a raid group and then drain their blood. And that would give him more energy, more health, more power. But in response to this spell, players could infect themselves on purpose with the corrupted blood that he had just stunned them with. And as Hakar would actually siphon their blood, he would become infected and die. And this was extremely effective for defeating Hakar as well as other characters. The initial intent by game developers was to limit this debuff to the Hakar's game region. It was Zul'Gurub, which is a high-level region. So basically everything in it packs a punch. It's for the players who are like the strongest, the highly skilled. They have their like health numbers all the way up. But a lot of players have pet companions that you can keep in the game. And when going into battle, people typically de-summon their pets, which just puts them in like a pause mode, and then they can unpause them after the battle is over. Well, what happened was Patient Zero, who we still don't know who they are, they unleashed this infection of the corrupted blood when they de-summoned their pet while the infection was still active. Only after defeating Hakar and returning to the city did they re-summon their pet, who unknowingly carried the corrupted blood infection. Gamers could fast travel, which is just teleporting, and this allowed gamers to easily go from large cities to secluded, lower populated regions. And they started doing that while carrying the infection of corrupted blood. Some, not knowing that defeating Hakar would end the infection, fled the region when they got infected and carried corrupted blood to all of the cities. Game developers forgot to include an off switch for the corrupted blood in the pets. So once players did defeat Hakar, they would fast travel to the city to get their health back up and repair their armory and their weapons, but their pets still had the corrupted blood.
And what does the corrupted blood do to you?
So it, quote, inflicted 263 to 317 hit points of damage every 2 seconds.
Oh, so it was just fucking you
kills
up.
you.
Okay.
Yeah, it damages all of your goods and until you're dead, until you can get a cure.
Okay.
Yeah, so it fucks you up, like you said. And even if gamers deactivated their pets, they would still carry corrupted blood when they were reactivated and were carriers for the disease. There was no cure for corrupted blood. Non-player characters would get the infection and become asymptomatic carriers as well. It quickly turned into a full-fledged pandemic in the World of Warcraft world of Azeroth. Unlike any real-world pandemics, there was no in-game cure for corrupted blood.
I don't understand how coding works. Like, how is this game disease acting like a real disease? I don't understand.
I don't know. And it provided a good opportunity for research, which we'll get to later.
Okay.
I don't know either. And it went on for quite some time before they were even able to get a handle on this thing, even in game. Can you imagine if this happened in 2020? Like, you're like, oh, I'm in a real world pandemic. Let me kick my feet up and get on World of Warcraft.
It would be horrible. Yeah, you'd be fucking pissed. I mean, people were probably pissed back then, but especially if all you have to live for is World of Warcraft.
Seriously. And so it's really wrecking these people. The World of Warcraft players are revived when they die, but they would still be infected with corrupted blood, and their items were damaged with each revival, making death inconvenient. World of Warcraft players were panicking. Players essentially said that they were like watching world and local news within the game by keeping tabs on their guild chat and their world chat. One player said, quote, "World chat would explode anytime a city fell. We kept a close eye on it to see where not to go. we didn't even want to catch it.
Oh my God. Like they were literally quarantining in the game.
Oh, just wait. People who played more casually and weren't on every day would hear about corrupted blood. And upon hearing about it, they'd be like, well, I want to see what this is all about. So they would log in, and more people were logging in, which was allowing the disease to spread even more and just perpetuating corrupted blood. Azeroth was transformed into a world of skeletons and corpse players. One player described Azeroth as, quote, filled to the brim with corpses, and the streets literally white with bones of the dead.
What? So when you die in World of Warcraft, what happens? Do you respawn?
Yeah, you respawn, you get revived, but from what it sounds like, the corpse will still be there, and there are non-player characters all throughout the game.
Yeah.
Who, well, I guess, they couldn't die. So I guess all of these corpses are representing players who had died.
So when you die in World of Warcraft, your body just stays. How is the whole game not just filled with dead bodies?
Well, this is a pandemic. So
Okay.
I don't know.
They just said the world is filled with dead bodies.
I know, but I feel like all the time.
Oh.
Yeah, you're constantly dying in a video game like this. I don't know.
Even more
Seems
so.
weird.
I was just laughing that she said bodies line the streets, and you were like, well, shouldn't there be bodies?
Touche.
You could not go into the cities without being infected. And if your health was below 50, you were immediately dead. So there was almost no purpose to even playing the game.
Yeah.
The reaction to the World of Warcraft pandemic was mixed. Some gamers were equipped with healing powers and served as the first responders, but eventually they too were falling ill to the infection, and the healing measures didn't really do much for the corrupted blood to begin with. Those who were healed were infected again almost immediately. So essentially they were just keeping people alive and it ended up keeping the infection going. Gamers who could not heal would stand on the outskirts of towns and warn other players that they shouldn't go in there.
Good for them. Imagine spending your time just playing your video game, just warning people. That's very nice of them.
It is very nice. On the flip side, there are the players who chose violence, known as griefers, and they're the ones who engage in bad faith gaming just for the fun of it. One player who purposefully spread the corrupted blood told Wired, quote, it's funny just to watch people running away screaming.
Yeah. I mean, it probably is.
No, check them out for psychopathic tendencies.
It's a video game. Who cares?
I guess so, but I think that really speaks to how thick are your layers of empathy?
And I feel like it's also how seriously do you take the game? Like the people standing outside of cities warning other people, it's
take it very seriously.
They take it very seriously. This is a big part of their life, whereas casual players probably didn't fucking care and just thought it was funny to run around infecting people.
Yeah, I probably would have been on the outskirts. You probably would have been running around infecting people.
I wouldn't even be playing. This sounds like too much for me.
It is quite a lot. Epidemiologist Nina Pfefferman noted that, quote, players seemed to really feel they were at risk and took the threat of infection seriously. And I do get that personally because World of Warcraft, it's supposed to be this fun escape from reality, and then you log in and you have to deal with a fucking pandemic? That sounds terrible. There were also players who spread misinformation about corrupted blood, which led to more infections.
Oh my God. So it really was foreshadowing for everything.
Yeah.
We should have listened and learned while we had the chance.
Sorry if anyone's triggered right now from hearing about this. But yeah, you're totally right. And 3 days after the pandemic began, Blizzard, who develops World of Warcraft, their staff members let players know that they were aware of the problem and that they were working on it. But when they realized corrupted blood had traveled throughout the world of Azeroth and not just stayed in its intended region, they knew they had a difficult road ahead.
Shouldn't they have already fucking realized that as soon as it left?
Probably, but at the same time, players didn't know what it was supposed to do.
That's true. See, I don't understand, like, why can't they just, like, delete the code for the corrupted blood? Why is it hard to get rid of?
I think it's way more complex than that. Because
I mean,
there's so many servers. Like, each city had its own server. So they found corrupted blood, like the origin of it, in whatever the region was, like in that server, but it had already spread. I don't know how coding works.
Yeah, that's wild. I don't know either.
And when they realized, I already said this, the first step Blizzard developers took was to institute quarantine zones. They placed barriers around infected areas, but this did not really even help at all. People tore them down and went around them. And people were also like suspicious of the quarantine zones and didn't trust that it would actually help anything.
Oh my God.
Developers also ran into issues with getting the pets disinfected. They could either check every single pet for corrupted blood when it was resummoned, or they could develop a, quote, really hacky code that would automatically check for infection. And they didn't want to really do either of them. So they're like, oh God, what are we going to do? Hotfixes were sent out that restarted each game server on a schedule, but corrupted blood swiftly found its way to these resetted areas. So like I talked about, these servers were for different regions. It did not take long for corrupted blood infection to find its way back into the
Why not just
areas they cleared.
Freeze everyone's account?
They do end up doing that.
Okay.
But it takes a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. And players would leave their infected regions, go into quarantine. The infected regions would get reset. People would emerge thinking that everything was safe, only to bring corrupted blood back to the region and get infected. So it goes on for a couple of weeks, no resolution. Blizzard performed a hard reset on all World of Warcraft servers, which reset Azeroth to how it was right before the pandemic started. And they also released a patch to make pets immune to the infection. So that was the end of that. But as we know, all this pandemic talk hits a bit close to home in 2022.
Just a little bit.
Back when it happened in 2005, epidemiologists jumped at the opportunity to study this situation. And they requested data and player reactions to corrupted blood. But since it was an accidental pandemic, Blizzard didn't have any data. And
they were just trying to fucking deal with it. They didn't have time to
collect data, get reactions, things like that. But it was extremely similar to real world pandemics. So the researchers did use it as a disease model. They compared the pet infections to the avian flu and in-game fast travel to the distant locations of the 2002-2004 SARS outbreaks. Player reactions to the pandemic was a specific point of interest for these researchers and, quote, added a level of authenticity that does not exist in other simulations. Because with other models, researchers have to assume human behavior. And even though World of Warcraft is not real, there are real people behind it who have real opinions.
Yeah, who care about this as if it is real life.
Exactly. They care about their characters. They care about their health. They care about their community. There has been doubt cast on the actual reliability about using this model scientifically because players can behave in ways that they typically would not in real life.
I guess, but it sounds like it's really fucking close.
That's what I was thinking too. I'm like, why not use it as a scientific model?
Right.
It just makes sense. A few things that are different is that the infection rate of corrupted blood was way higher than any real world pathogen that we've ever seen. And infected players could not build any immunity. So that did perpetuate infections, but it still can and has been used as an observational tool.
Did the game like create an in-game vaccine that you could take against corrupted blood? They should have.
They did do is, and let me scroll a little bit further in my notes here. They did release an expansion pack titled Wrath of the Leash King, due to the popularity that this whole outbreak created. And in this expansion pack, mysterious crates appear in towns, and those who inspect them become infected with an unknown disease. If they failed to find a cure within 10 minutes, they would become zombies.
10 minutes?
10 game minutes.
What was the cure?
Well, there was a cure through healing spells, and so that was good. But as more players became infected, the time to find a cure became shorter and shorter. So
oh my God.
10 minutes or less, and the infection grew its immunity to the cures. So
that's not fair.
Thanks to the corrupted blood incident, they have released actual planned pandemics, I suppose.
Yeah, they found out it's fun. Pandemics are fun.
It's fun when you have some control, you know what's going to happen, you know what the cure is.
When no one's actually dying.
Yeah, when you can Google corrupted blood incident and see what happens, that's a lot more fun than living through it.
Yeah, I would say.
Several researchers actually turned to the corrupted blood incident during the COVID-19 outbreak to gain some insight on the virus's sociological impact. The LCM project ran a project called Pandemic in Azeroth, which mimicked corrupted blood and the COVID-19 pandemic. This is something we all knew, but now we have data to back it up. They found the virus infected 88% of active players, but when using sanitation and quarantine, surprise, surprise, infection rates dropped to 42.2%.
Wow.
Which is still pretty high.
Yeah, it is.
So the thing that gets me, though, is that when Blizzard intentionally created that expansion pack with the planned pandemic, if you will, they didn't let the researchers look at any of the data.
Why not?
They just let them in the dark. I don't know why. I couldn't get to the bottom of it. But that brings us to the end of our little learning journey on corrupted blood.
I wonder if it had something to do with the releases you signed to play the game. If in order to give away the data, there would have had to been some clause where they agreed.
Everyone
to that
agrees to be
I don't
participants.
know.
Yeah,
just speculating.
Something like that. But they surely did not agree to be a part of the corrupted blood incident. I found out about this from a video on TikTok, and just watching this TikToker, I wish I remembered his name. I'll try and link him in the notes or something. But him talking about the different reactions from everyone, even though this was not a real situation at all, but the suspicion of the quarantine and people spreading it on purpose or not caring that they would go into these big towns. I'm just dang.
Yeah, there's so many parallels.
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
That is crazy.
Well, my notes are the corrupted blood incident on Wikipedia, the weird World of Warcraft pandemic of 2005 by Miaia Andrea in ZME Science, and World of Warcraft perfectly predicted our coronavirus pandemic by Amit Katwala in Wired.
Well, thank you for that learning journey. That was fascinating.
You're welcome.
And now I want to go play video games.
Me too. Sims, World of Warcraft, My Second Life.
But we can't because we have to go watch your stupid boyfriend do stupid stand-up.
We'll get good food, don't worry.
That's true. I am really excited
Me too.
for the food. I'm hungry
now.
All right, let's go get food. But before that, please listen to what I have to say. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe anywhere you can. Give us a good rating. Don't just I say rate, review. Give us a positive rate and review. We like that. Tell your friends, tell your family, post about us on social media. We love it. We'll repost it if you tag us in it. And yeah, follow us there. Join us on Patreon. We love to see it. And as always, thank you guys so much for listening and being a supporter. We love you. And 3, 2, 1, class dismissed.